November 19th, 2024 meeting of the Orland Park Plan Commission. I would ask you all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First order of business, we'll do our roll call. I'm Chairman Parisi. Commissioner Schuessler?
Present.
Commissioner Paul?
Present.
Commissioner Zamparelli?
Present.
Commissioner Sanchez?
Here.
Commissioner Nugent?
Present.
And Commissioner Zatar is not here. Okay. First order of business, we've all had a chance to review the minutes of the previous meeting ahead of this meeting here. I entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the November 5th meeting.
Mr. Chairman,
Moved by Commissioner Schuessler.
move that the minutes be approved for November 5th, 2024 as presented. Second.
Moved by Commissioner Schuessler, seconded by Commissioner Zamparelli. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
I must abstain because I wasn't here. I move we open public hearings.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move we open public hearing number 2024-0717, 14335 Oak Place, Rivard Residence Lot Consolidation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good. Okay. So, developer here or representatives here? So, by the way, just to let you know how to meet, who's here is just from the public and they're not here from one of these issues? No? Okay. Well, anyway, thank you all for coming. But what we do, if somebody wants to speak, they have to come up to the podium. This meeting is recorded. And chances are, if you don't want to speak, there might be a question that requires you to answer it. You know, for instance, if you're an engineer or something. And so everybody who's going to speak or may speak, we will swear them in. And that's generally how it goes. So the petitioner would step up to the podium.
Hello?
Will you please raise your right hand? Thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that any testimony you present today in this matter will be the truth and nothing but the truth? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Your name and address for the record.
My name is John Lawler. I live at 14420 3rd Avenue, Orland Park. I'm the developer, Second Avenue Development. And I'm here on behalf of the Kurt Rivard property.
Okay. You have, obviously, you've talked to some with staff and you've seen the questions, you know, you were asking about special use or
Yes.
variances, and you understand all that?
Yep.
And accept their findings, I take it. You've hashed this out with them?
Yes.
Okay. Anything you'd like to add?
No, we're just, like
Okay.
I said, trying to build a single-family house. That's what was there before.
Sure.
It was knocked down. We're trying to put one back up.
Okay.
So Mr. Rivard is going to be moving here
How are
from
you?
Naperville. So,
Good.
and we're hoping to get started.
Thank you.
So-
Staff?
Thank you. Should I begin my presentation? Good, okay.
Could
I'd
you,
like to
could you
begin-
make sure that mic is on and that it's close to you?
Yes, sorry, I'm stretching here.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Okay. I would like to begin by respectfully requesting that the staff report be accepted into the record as written and as presented during this meeting. So today we'll be discussing the Rivard Residence Lot Consolidation. So the property is 14335 Oak Place. The zoning is the OOH, Old Orland Historic District, Planning District Downtown, and comprehensive plan designates this for mixed residential use. So the petitioner is seeking approval of a plat of consolidation to combine 3 parcels into one, and they are also seeking a variance from section 6-209C1 of the Land Development Code to increase the maximum lot width from 50 feet to 75 feet. So this slide shows an image of the downtown planning district from the comprehensive plan, in which the subject property is indicated by the star here. We can see that the subject property is intended for mixed residential, with adjacent properties to the east designated as neighborhood mixed use, and those to the south as single-family residential. This slide shows a recent aerial image of the property. Here we can see that the subject property is located on the corner of Oak Place and 144th Street. The property is currently vacant, but was formerly occupied by a single-family home. The property is currently 3 lots, as you can see here, and in order for the developer to build a new single-family home on the lot, they must be consolidated into one. So this slide shows a clip of the proposed plat of consolidation, just showing the 3 lots combined into one. So here are the lot requirements for residential property in the Old Orland Historic District. The existing 3 lots are each about 2,500 square feet with lot widths of about 25 feet. So therefore, the 3 lots combined into one would have a total area of approximately 7,500 square feet and a lot width of 75 feet. And as mentioned previously, the petitioner is seeking a variance to allow for the 75-foot lot width, whereas the maximum lot width for a residential property in Old Orland is 50 feet. So staff's created this exhibit to show other residential corner lots in Old Orland with lot widths greater than the maximum of 50 feet. So the highlighted parcels are those lots. Therefore, the 8 highlighted parcels make up about 33% of the residential corner lots in Old Orland. So staff is in support of the variance request, as it is not out of character for the neighborhood and is the minimum variance necessary to allow for reasonable use of the land. So as for the staff recommended action regarding case number 2024-717, also known as Rivard Residence Lot Consolidation, staff recommends to accept and make findings of fact as discussed at this Plan Commission meeting and within the staff report dated November 14th, 2024. And staff recommends that the Plan Commission approve a variance from section 6-209C1 to increase the maximum lot width from 50 feet to 75 feet. And staff recommends that the Plan Commission approve a plat of consolidation. And that concludes the staff presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now go to my fellow commissioners. Any questions or comments? Commissioner Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So it looks like there's already 8 existing lots that are already bigger than that. And it does seem pretty unreasonable to have a single-family home in those little tiny lots there. So, yeah, I don't see any issues with it. I actually think it's good.
Thank you. Commissioner Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, kind of the same thing. I mean, if you limit this to 50 feet, then there's going to be a 25-foot lot that's going to be sitting there. And there's a lot of larger homes in that area, and I think something that would kind of look out of place in that 25-foot lot. So it makes sense just to combine the whole thing. So yeah, I'd have no problem with that.
Thank you. Commissioner Zamparelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I concur with my fellow commissioners. It seems like a no-brainer to me. I'd like to see it get developed over there, so good luck.
Thank you. Commissioner Nugent.
So, any of you over there, a couple things. I mean, obviously, we all know Mr. Lawler knows his neighbor possibly better than anybody in the village. And, but a couple things for here, and then I'm going to reserve a question for Mr. Schuessler because of his prior tenures. I just wanted to clarify. So comprehensive plan does remain this as R4, correct? Because the 2 properties to the north of him, especially the furthest north, might be 2 flats. I know the last one's a 2 flat. So on that street, the triangular piece at the end is a vacant parcel with no house on it. The second is a 2 flat. Looks like that 2 flat encroaches on the next 25-footer. Then there's a older house, it's rented. I'm not sure if it's a 2-unit. And then the garage is on a 25, and then there are 3 25s. But a couple of things in his petition, in fact, 3 of the answers, I just want to clarify some stuff. So technically, this area remains R4, correct?
So for the zoning district, it's the Old Orland Historic District. But for the comprehensive plan, it's R4 or also mixed residential as it's designated in the map legend.
Right. So I'm just thinking about the future people there. I realize, and Mr. Lawler probably knows more about them than I do. I know nothing about them. They don't appear to live there based on tax records, but if these people want to develop their side lots, there's 2 to 3 lots there, and 2 of them are 25 footers. I don't see any reason why they still can't develop their 25 by 100 because it's an active alley, correct? So the lot immediately north to this property is a 25 by 100 with a garage on it. Any reason why they can't build on that in the future based on what we're doing? And it's an R4.
It would depend. So it looks like the lot directly to the north is currently over 2 lots. I'm not sure how accurate the property lines are, probably not completely, but if they were to redevelop or do any sort of additions in the future, they may need to consolidate those lots if they are doing any work over
But
the
they're
property
not
lines.
forced to, right? Because you could build on a 25 and you could build on 2,500 square feet here, correct?
Yeah, the minimum lot width for Old Orland is 25 feet for an interior lot.
And we've confirmed, obviously, that alley is still active, right?
Yes.
Okay. Second question for you. I know it's not what they desire, but they were referencing that if they consolidated the 2 north, they could have consolidated the 2 south and potentially developed the north 25, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then in your information, you guys had on there that it's residential, but technically across the alley, that's not residential, is it? You have the accounting office, and then you have the vacant 75, the southern 25 is actually isn't that the property that was already approved for mixed use, the McLaughlin Kelly property? So isn't the southern lot actually not zoned residential? None of that's zoned residential, correct?
Well, it's all zoned
I mean, residential use, sorry.
a residential use. I believe it was formerly, I believe that's a historic property on the corner there. Now it's used for commercial as in like a real estate office or something similar.
Accounting.
Accounting.
And that still has that zoning, so they still have the mixed use there, correct? And they could build on 25 footers as well, right?
I'm not familiar with the commercial regulations for Old Orland.
Marcus?
Possibly.
Yeah, so, excuse me, on Beacon Street, it's a mixed-use area of, so you can actually do commercial on the first floor on Beacon Street, or Beacon Avenue, north of 144th Street, but you cannot on 144th Street.
We approved that some time ago, that parcel on Beacon. It never went through, but we approved it.
It was approved and the board approved it, and I was on the board at that time.
Wait, are you done, John?
No, just one last thing, if I can ask Commissioner Schussler.
Go ahead, yeah, sure.
So back in your trustee days, when we created all this in the 90s, was the intention to have large single families, or was it to have intense usage? Was it 143rd or 144th? Because in May, we clarified where the townhomes can go west of the railroad tracks. But based on all your comprehensive planning, wasn't this for intense use? I'm just concerned that the future people will be limited, because you got the entire block of 143rd Place, where the gentleman owns the 3, and then Mr. Courtney owns the 2 corner structures, and those are on 25 footers. So, I mean, if you don't recall, but isn't that why you guys gave us an intense zoning?
As best I can recall, the intention was to preserve as much as possible in Old Orland without really addressing the 2 issues that you raised specifically.
Okay.
And yes, there was the parcel that you referenced to the north, across the alley and to the north of 144th, the 75 feet. The Plan Commission and the Village Board, and I was on the board at the time, approved a project that would have retail on the first floor, and I forget whether it was either condos or apartments on the second floor. But it was never built. The fellow that owned the property and was going to do the building, he passed away. And later on, now former Mayor McLaughlin bought the property, and I believe he still owns it, but I don't know for sure.
Because the other thing, in the drawings, 4 of the corners that are mentioned are train corners. So if you split the lots in 2, the other lot doesn't have frontage, even 25 foot to build on. And then the Berry property at 144th and Beacon is 4 25-footers, and it had an existing house, so they could have split it, but, okay. I don't have any further questions. And just so it's on the record, I do understand, Mr. Lawler, you're building gorgeous, beautiful homes here, and you've had a beautiful vision for the neighborhood. I'm not circumventing that. We also have to protect the rights of the other property owners that live between 143rd and 144th Street. So, but thank you.
Thank you, John. Commissioner Schuessler?
I have nothing to add to what the commissioners, my fellow commissioners have said. It seems like an appropriate use. There's one thing about Old Orland, some of the development in Old Orland dates back 125 to 150 years ago. And if there's anything consistent today, it's inconsistency. Because over a long period of time before the village got into doing comprehensive plans and land development codes and so on, things just happened in the village of Orland Park. And that happens to be Old Orland. So we have to adapt, and this is a project where, when you look at what the staff indicated, where a third of the corner lots are non-conforming, this tells us that we have to make some exceptions, and this is an appropriate exception to make. So with that in mind, I would propose a motion, Mr. Chairman. Oh, you have to say, make it.
That would be nice. Yeah, no, I don't have much to add. I do appreciate the discussion that was presented by Commissioner Nugent to explain this a little more thoroughly, and I appreciate your added thoughts, and I concur with you. And so with that, I will entertain a motion.
I would make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Please?
Regarding case number 2024-0717, also known as Rivard Residence Lot Consolidation, I move to approve the staff recommended action as presented in the staff report to the Plan Commission for this case.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Paul. I'll poll you. Commissioner Sanchez?
Aye.
Commissioner Paul?
Aye.
Chairman Parisi, aye. Commissioner Schuessler?
Aye.
Commissioner Nugent?
Vote aye, so you can go forward and avoid the committee of the whole. I do think that this lot should be more intense use, but, welcome.
That's an aye, huh?
You've done a good project.
Commissioner Zamparelli?
Aye.
Thank you. Good luck, gentlemen. I move we close public hearing number 2024-0717.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move we open public hearing number 2023-0309, Founders of Orland Park Residential Planned Development.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Petitioners here. Would you raise your right hand, please?
Is anyone else attending?
Anybody else for this project here, like an engineer or a traffic study or anything like that? Why don't you, yes, good. We're going to swear you all in at once. And then when you come up here, you can give us your name and address at that time and what your position is, and I appreciate that. Go ahead.
Ready? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that any testimony you present tonight in this matter will be the truth and nothing but the truth? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. And your name and address and position?
I am Caitlin Chuck, the attorney for the petitioner from Rosanova and Whitaker. My address is 445 Jackson Avenue, Suite 200 in Naperville. So good evening once again. I am the attorney representing the petitioner, Bridge Street Properties. With me this evening, I have John McHale of Bridge Street Properties. I have Todd Clevin of Lennar Homes, Kevin Serafin, our civil engineer, and Zach Lukes, our land planner. Just for reference, Bridge Street Properties is the owner of the property that we're going to be discussing this evening, and Lennar will ultimately be developing the homes. A little bit of background on Lennar. Lennar was founded in 1954 and is currently the nation's second largest home builder. Here's a list of, I went a little too fast. Here's a list of Lennar's Chicagoland locations, which includes some nearby suburbs like Plainfield, Joliet, and Manhattan. Lennar is super excited for the opportunity to provide yet another successful community in the Chicagoland area, and more specifically here in Orland Park. The subject property is approximately 15 acres east of Wolf Road and south of 159th Street. It's always nice to start with a little bit of history for context. So The property to the immediately north of the subject property was annexed to Orland Park in January of 1994, along with the property immediately west of the site. Generally, the annexation agreement governing these properties contemplated large-scale residential development, specifically as it relates to the property immediately north and identified as the sub-area Sayers 1 in the annexation agreement. High-density apartments and townhomes were contemplated. Since the annexation approval of these properties 20 years ago, these properties failed to fully develop. Fast forwarding to 2009, the property was annexed along with 27 other properties. Due to the nature that it was annexed, there is no annexation agreement governing the subject property. In the village, property is automatically zoned to E1 estate residential upon annexation. So accordingly, even though the property has an E1 zoning designation, the designation is not exactly reflective of what the village's intended land use goals for the property are. So to this end, no, that's right. To this end, we look to the comprehensive plan for guidance on the village's goals and objectives for the future land use of the property. Specifically, the comp plan notes how single-family detached homes do dominate the housing market here in town, and there's a need for a variety of housing types in order to address the needs of all different types of home buyers, specifically the aging demographic. The village's future land use map identifies the future land use of the property as mixed residential under R4 zoning. Specifically, appropriate land uses under this designation are attached single-family, row homes, and townhomes. To this end, we are seeking to rezone the property to R4 pursuant to the guidance provided under the comprehensive plan. Under R4 zoning, we're proposing a 90-unit townhome community. The entrance to the community will be provided off of Wolf Road. Required parking for the development is 225 spaces. Technically, we'll be providing 427 spaces, which far exceeds the parking requirement, but wanted to take it a step further, remove driveway parking from the calculation because that does not count under your code, and our total parking is still above the requirement at 247 spaces. Petitioner is proposing sidewalks and a walking path throughout the community. The community will be heavily landscaped as seen here on our illustrative plan. And there's a huge, strong focus on creating open spaces for passive recreation, recreational opportunities here. So in fact, the project is required to maintain 20% open space, and we well exceed that. Our proposal will feature over 50% of the site being reserved for open space. These open spaces will include 3 passive park areas totaling about 3 acres. This is comprised of walking paths, seating areas, and a scenic overlook with a wooded arbor over the seating area. Overlook over the detention area, I should say. With respect to landscaping, the whole site will be heavily landscaped with a mix of evergreen trees, shade trees, ornamental trees, and a mix of shrubs. The entrance to the community will feature a landscape median and substantial landscaping of large ornamental and evergreen trees in order to provide a buffer from Wolf Road to Building 1 and provide a beautiful entrance and a monument sign. In terms of foundation landscaping, each townhome building will be heavily landscaped with evergreen trees, ornamental trees, perennials, and deciduous and evergreen shrubs. In addition, there will be canopy trees planted at each building. Lastly, with respect to landscaping, here's an exhibit illustrating the extensive landscaping planned around the perimeter of the community. So this will be comprised of your evergreen shade trees and so on in order to ensure appropriate buffering and also to properly delineate the property lines here. With regards to setbacks, we are providing a minimum of 35 feet to the perimeter property line, in some cases 75 feet to the property line. We're also providing a minimum 59 feet between buildings. In some cases, we're nearly 200 feet between buildings. In fact, our setbacks are in excess of the code requirements, and thus we're providing more than adequate separation, and we're avoiding overcrowding on the site. In addition to setbacks, the development will be well under the maximum lot coverage of 60%, thereby ensuring that there is going to be more usable green space as opposed to building area. Moving on to architecture, we are proposing 3-story townhomes. The townhomes will have an at-grade entrance with a garage and a flex room on the first floor. The second floor will be your kitchen and living space, and your third floor are your bedrooms. The plan features 2 elevations, the Ellicott and the Edenton. The townhomes will range from 2,027 square feet to 2,222 square feet. All units will have 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms, and a 2-car garage. This is the same product that was built at Naperville Crossing over in South Naperville and was very well received. The architecture is predominantly brick with varying roof lines, white trim, bump outs, and large windows in order to allow that natural light into the unit. We've worked very closely with staff over the last few months in order to enhance the site elevations that are adjacent to roadways. This is even enhanced from what was proposed, or not proposed, what was built at Naperville Crossing. And this is aligned with the high-quality housing that people have truly come to expect here in Orland Park. Here's some interior photos of the townhomes. Generally, the homes have an open space concept and will offer several upgrades for additional features. All homes will have modern appliances, designs, and features. As we mentioned before, the comprehensive plan notes for a need for diversity of housing in Orland Park. Townhomes truly meet the needs of all different types of home buyers, ranging from your young professionals to persons in transition to empty nesters. The proposed development provides an excellent opportunity and canvas in order to fill those housing gaps. As noted in the staff report, we're requesting a variance this evening from the density requirement. Point of clarification, the request is for 7.4 units per acre on a net density basis, not 7.7. We are at a gross density of 6 units per acre. That said, density in itself is not a bad thing. The restrictions are in place in order to ensure that public facilities are not necessarily overwhelmed. So first, I want to discuss the school impact. So here is the student generation table that was put together pursuant to Orland Park's code. Using the code's population generation table, we expect a total of 17 school-age children from K through 12 to be generated from this development. The students would go to the schools identified on this slide. We're projecting 9 elementary students, which equates to a 1.8% increase from current enrollment. 4 junior high students, which equates to a 0.3% increase at each junior high school respectively. And 4 high school students, which equates to a 0.1% increase in student population. So we can reasonably conclude that the impact to the schools is minimal. The same generation table is used to understand the total number of people generated for this development and to understand what the impact on parks will be. Based upon that, we have a requirement to provide 1.49 acres of parks or cash in lieu thereof in order to offset the impact of the development. Petitioner is incorporating 51% open space into this plan, which includes the 3 park sites that I previously discussed, totaling approximately 3 acres. This exceeds the park requirement under the code. However, since the parks will be privately owned and maintained by the HOA, petitioner will provide a cash contribution to the Parks Department. With this, we're not only providing an abundant amount of passive recreational opportunity for the residents at this development, but we're also providing those funds, the cash in lieu thereof, to the Orland Park Recreation and Parks Department to support the other parks in town. We can reasonably conclude here that there is no negative impact on the park facilities as well. Moving on to traffic, Wolf Road, as you I'm sure are aware, sees thousands of vehicles per day. We did a traffic study, and during the peak morning hours, we had 1,263 vehicles during the morning peak hour and 1,008 vehicles during the evening peak hour at this very location. The project is expected to generate an additional 33 trips onto Wolf Road during the morning peak hours and 20 trips onto Wolf Road during the evening peak hours. This is a mere 2% increase, and with that, these trips are drops in a bucket when compared to the thousands of cars that Wolf Road sees. So Wolf Road certainly has the capacity to handle this minimal increase and will still operate at an acceptable level of service under fully developed conditions. Even so, the petitioner is proposing to install a southbound left turn lane and a northbound right turn lane on Wolf Road in order to make sure that there's no negative impact on the operation of traffic in this area. So accordingly, the project will not overwhelm traffic or the local roads. Next, I want to quickly touch base on the stormwater design. The community will be adequately served by utilities and will meet stormwater detention requirements. That said, Orland Park is very unique in how we are required to design stormwater, and with this resulted in a larger, more shallow basin. With a smaller basin, we could technically gain more buildable area in order to bring our overall net density down, but we wouldn't change anything else on the plan, if that makes sense. So in other communities, there's different requirements. We would provide adequate storage on a smaller basin, but ultimately, and that would give us more buildable area that would go towards our net density calculation, but ultimately, even without a reduction of units, our net density would come down. We're compliant with the stormwater design requirements under your code. We're fully comfortable moving forward with that. We think it's actually a very beautiful feature as well, but with that leads to our net density calculation. Going the wrong way. Quickly, under current conditions, the subject property generates about $1,000 of tax revenue per year. By virtue of developing the property, the total tax revenue will be over $1 million per year. This goes to show that not only are the public facilities not overwhelmed by virtue of this development, but there's also a net fiscal benefit to the development as well. Taking the school districts as an example, though we only expect this project to generate 17 students, the school districts will still receive tax revenues of about $423,000 and $302,000 per year respectively. So that is pretty extraordinary. If not approved, the property will likely continue to sit stagnant, undeveloped alongside the other adjacent properties. We're asking you to please view this project on its own merits. This project is unique, again, in that we are reserving 51% of the site as open space. Where density relief is usually required, open space is usually another metric that is hard to be met. We're not only meeting that metric, but again, we're drastically exceeding it. In addition, the setbacks and lot coverage are bulk regulations that are in place in order to ensure that a development will not inhibit the use and enjoyment of other property owners. In essence, the minimum setbacks and lot coverage limitations are also another means of managing density. We want to make sure buildings and units are not on top of one another. So as mentioned, we're in excess of all setbacks and we're under that maximum lot coverage under the code. Again, providing abundant separations, and we have an appropriate building to open space area. So as you can see on the plan, we just want to illustrate how much functionality there is to this development and how much green space there really will be. It's not a sardine community. The buildings are really thoughtfully placed, separated, and meet code and subdivision regulations. These regulations are in place to make sure a project is designed appropriately and is not overwhelmingly dense. In fact, the petitioner, if we were to bring this down to 74 units, which I think is the number that would have to be to meet that net density, technically, to make those financial numbers work for the developer, those units would be larger, they'd appear bulkier, they'd take up more lot coverage, and likely would reduce the overall open space. Prices for the unit might increase as well because of construction costs, so in our opinion, it would not necessarily yield a better plan just by reducing the number of units. As I'm sure you're aware, there's a national housing shortage. The housing market is driven by supply and demand. Though there was a construction boom during the pandemic and after the pandemic, U.S. families increased by 1.8 million, where only 1.4 million homes were constructed. This yields higher price points and historically high interest rates, which I'm sure you're all aware, and this has been pricing home buyers out of the market. As a whole, we need to come closer to meeting the supply and demand. The village's most recent demographics indicate ages 55 and up are the largest age demographic, making up nearly 41% of the village's population. The next largest age range is the combined age range of 25 to 44, making up 23% of the population. Much of the aging population wants to downsize, but they don't want to downgrade. They've planted their roots here in Orland Park, and we don't want them to leave in order to find a smaller home with no maintenance obligations. We want to encourage these residents to stay, age in place, stay local, give them a nice new construction option that's close to home and hopefully grandkids even. This also makes room for the millennial home buyer who's struggling to obtain home ownership in today's market. Whether that's moving into the empty nester's house because they moved into the townhome, or whether that's them buying the townhome as their first home as well, as a starter home. In general, the crux of the solution here is more inventory. More inventory brings us closer to the necessary supply and demand in order to help with today's housing shortage. In addition, I wanted to quickly point out that the median value of owner-occupied homes in Orland is $337,800. with an expected average sales price of $465,000 for these townhomes. This development will only increase that median value for the village-wide. Quick conclusion, sorry, I know this was relatively long. We understand not all proposals asking for density relief come through looking like this. We're asking you to view this practically and on its own merits once again. The surrounding properties have failed to develop in accordance with their intended land use, which was high-density residential. The subject property wants to be a little bit more dense because of its location off of Wolf Road, but that said, again, I want to dial it back to the purpose of density. We never want to overwhelm those public facilities, those roads, those utilities. And with this, I hope that I've explained that the development is not expected to do those things. The community is in excess of all setbacks under the maximum allowable lot coverage and has that extraordinary amount of open space for passive recreation. In addition, the development will only help provide some economic growth in this otherwise underperforming area where we expected to see more development. And we also just feel this will be an excellent addition to Orland Park. So as a quick reference, we first submitted in April of 2023, and we met with staff in advance of that, so we've been at this for a really long time. The developer has significantly invested in the community, and we're really excited and grateful for this opportunity. So I want to thank you all for your time this evening. We're all happy to answer any questions you have.
Well, thank you, Caitlin, for a very well-thought, thorough, and detailed explanation.
Thank you for bearing with me.
No, thank you, our pleasure. Staff?
Okay. All right, thank you. And I would like to begin by requesting that the staff report is entered into the record as written and as presented for this case. I'll keep mine brief. I know I don't want to repeat a lot of information here, but the existing site is a greenfield about 15 acres in size, located just south of 159th and Wolf Road. The future land use for this area is designated as mixed residential with an R4 zoning recommended specifically for this area. And with the R4 zoning, standard single family, mixed use, and commercial are not considered appropriate for this area. First, the petitioner is seeking a rezoning of the property from R4 to R4 from the current E1 district. The property was annexed into the village back in 2007, and the default zoning district for when properties are annexed is E1. So based upon the comprehensive plan, R4 is an appropriate land use for this area. Plus, just south of there, there's an R4 plan development, Spring Creek Place, just located south of the township building. And then on the west side of Wolf Road, there's the Avenel neighborhood. And the petitioner has submitted responses to the rezoning factors within their petition, and staff recommends approval of that rezoning from E1 to R4. Next, the petitioner is seeking approval of a special use permit for a planned development within the R4 residential district. As mentioned, the proposed development would contain 90 townhomes on about 15 acres of land. And our GIS consultants nicely created some 3D visuals for the proposed development while they're working on their new GIS system. They're also requesting a special use permit for a disturbance of a non-tidal wetland. So in the northeast corner of the site, there is an existing wetland, and as you can see, there would be about 3 units right on top of that area, plus you'd have a wetland buffer around that area. So the petitioner has provided the off-site mitigation credits and has followed the permitting process with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers as well as the MWRD. So staff recommends approval of that special use permit for this site. Additionally, the petitioner seeks approval of the site plan, which contains 2 public streets, Yunker Road going east-west and Yelnick Lane going north-south, and both of those streets would be maintained by the village. The site also includes multiple park areas and that will all be owned and maintained by a homeowners association as well as the stormwater management area and the pond overlook area. As mentioned, the site is 51% common open space, which is more than double our required 20% minimum in the R4 district. For the building layouts, so all the townhomes contain rear-facing garages with driveways, and the site does have additional on-street parking. And just going over the required parking again, 3-bedroom units are required to have 2.5 parking spaces per townhome unit, and each unit does have a 2-car garage in addition to on-street parking provided. And once again, as mentioned, it's not counted per code, but all the townhomes do have garages do have driveways that would allow for 180 additional cars. Just going briefly through the landscape plan, it was reviewed and recommended for preliminary approval, and any outstanding landscape items will be addressed after board approval. Additionally, the civil engineering plan is also recommended for approval and reviewed by staff. A lighting plan, along with the establishment of a special service area for the maintenance of the stormwater management area, will be required after the board approval. And a traffic impact study has been provided and was attached in the online agenda for this case. And the study found that surrounding roadways can accommodate the development-generated traffic within the development for the site. And then here is a map of the proposed left and right turn lanes to enter the site. The petitioner is also seeking approval of the building elevations. The proposed buildings will feature brick as their primary material. Top floor will be siding, and that is permitted with the code. Staff did request additional details on the side elevations, as Caitlin mentioned, and those have been incorporated into the facades. And the side elevations are the most visible from Yunker Road and as well as Yelnick Lane. So it's kind of important to showcase our four-sided architecture on new developments within the village. The buildings will have two color options, and buildings of the same color will not be placed side by side as shown in the anti-monotony exhibit. A modification to allow for an increase in density from 6 units per acre to 7.41 units per acre has been requested for this property, and that was amended after the staff report was distributed. So the staff report currently says 7.7, but it's actually 7.41 based on a new calculation. But largely because of the size of the stormwater management area, the petitioner is over the maximum allowable density, and based upon the gross density for the site would meet the requirement if we did measure it by 6 units per acre. However, last year, staff did bring forward a code amendment to change how the density was calculated. We were looking to do more of a gross acreage density calculation over a net buildable area, and that was approved by the Plan Commission. However, the Board of Trustees denied this amendment, so for this case, staff cannot support this modification based on the direction we were given. The second modification is for a height increase on the townhome units from 30 feet to a maximum height of 35 feet. The property currently is mostly surrounded by vacant land, and the increase is intended to accommodate the roof line on the building. And the increase of 5 feet beyond the requirement is the minimum adjustment necessary for the proposed building style. And staff does recommend approval of this modification from 30 feet to 35 feet. Lastly, the petitioner seeks approval of a plat of subdivision for this planned development. All lot sizes and dimensions do conform to the regulations in the code, and the final plat will be approved at the Board of Trustees. For the staff recommended action, staff recommends to accept and make findings of fact as discussed at this Plan Commission meeting and within the staff report dated November 14th. And staff recommends approval of the zoning map amendment, approval of the special use for planned development, approval of the site plan, landscape plan, building elevations, subject to the following conditions listed on screen and within the staff report. Staff recommends approval of the modification to increase the building height from 30 feet up to 35 feet. And staff recommends that the Plan Commission denies the density increase beyond the 6 units per acre. And staff does recommend approval of the plat of subdivision for Founders of Orland Park. Thank you.
Thank you. Just out of curiosity, a couple things. One first on traffic, you know, it was mentioned that you've seen an additional 30 cars entering Wolf Road in the morning and later. Does that seem realistic for 90 units?
During peak hour.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, thank you. And just if you could briefly help us with the explain to us the logic of calculating the density based on net versus gross area.
Yeah, so for gross density, that would just count the 14.99 acres on the site, which would be 6 units per acre for this project. That was the amendment we brought forward to the board back, or to the Plan Commission and the board back in 2023. That was denied. But for this case, for net buildable area, that's how we calculate density now. And that subtracts out right-of-way dedication, wetland areas, stormwater management areas, as well as other utilities that weren't really relevant to this case, like ComEd lines. But because of the size of the pond, that 14.99 acre site and the right-of-way dedication of like 0.57 acres, there would only be about 12 buildable acres on site I believe it might be 12.83 net buildable acres. So when we take the density from 6 units per acre on 15 acres of land, but now we're doing 6 units per acre on 12.8 acres of land because we're subtracting out the stormwater.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'll go to my commissioners first. Start with Commissioner Schussler.
Thanks. A couple of questions, first of all. Will these units have basements? Will any of the units have basements? Will they all be slab?
No, they're all slab, and it's a grade entry, so the first floor will have like a flex space, a room with a powder room, and then that's your garage as well. Sorry, you're not walking into the garage, it's on the same level. And
Okay.
then the second floor is your living space.
Yeah, I looked at.
Yep, okay.
I looked at the drawings, that's fine.
Slab is the answer.
I just didn't know if they had basements. I couldn't tell from the drawings. I noticed when I go down Bell Road in Homer Glen, there's a Founders development. There's another one in Frankfurt off, I think, LaGrange Road. Is that Lennar that did those also?
No, not to my knowledge. No.
Okay. I would like to ask Peter, as our engineer, what are the unique design requirements for the pond, which causes the pond to take up so much acreage?
Yeah, per.
And why?
Yeah, just per village code, I mean, to require that storage requirement, they had to do that 6 acres per feet.
Could you speak into the mic, please?
Yeah, for like the village stormwater code, the storage requirement was to design the pond for 6 acres per foot, given the 14 acres of the land.
Why couldn't they go deeper with the pond to use less land?
Yeah, there's.
Okay.
I'm Kevin Serafin with SEMCON, 2280 White Oak Circle in Aurora. Because we were tied to the outlet elevation underneath Wolf Road.
Okay.
And we only have like 2 feet of bounce where we would typically have 4 or 5 feet of bounce. So it's twice the size that it typically would be.
Okay. Well, I think we need to note that we don't want flooding on Wolf Road because there's enough
Right.
flooding on Wolf Road to the south, so. I was looking for a way to,
I know,
that would have been too simple, just go deeper.
right.
We're kind of caught in a difficult position here because, as was indicated in Marcus's presentation, this board unanimously recommended to the village board that the density be based on gross acreage, and the village board said no. And that's why the staff is recommending against that request to us, and that's why we have to make a difficult decision. Having been on the village board at one time, I know a little bit about how it operates. And unfortunately, Caitlin, you're going to have to make this presentation again. It was an excellent presentation. I've listened to a lot of them, and yours was one of the best. I think when you talk to the village board, well, let me say, first of all, when it comes time to voting, I'm going to follow the staff recommendation only because the village board has made the policy decision that they want to use net buildable acreage rather than gross acreage for density. I like your development. I think it's an excellent development. I agree with everything else you said in your presentation. I like your elevations. I like your layout. I like everything about the plan. And I think your client is an excellent developer, so I think it would be a quality development. The problem is the village board has this definition of how they're going to define density. So I think when you talk to the village board, it would behoove you to indicate to them what some other villages require in the way they define density. I don't know what other villages require. Of course, every village has unique provisions. There's no one code that applies across the board. But if Orland is an outlier in that respect, perhaps the board might consider then changing. And the other thing that I think is important is the fact that it would be nice to get something going along Wolf Road. We've got a lot of vacant farmland along Wolf Road. And this may or may not kickstart it. It depends upon the owners. I think there's one big owner that owns a lot of the acreage to get going on that. But I think it appears to be a quality development. We've got this one stumbling block, which is this density issue. That's about all I have to say.
Thank you. Commissioner Nugent, could we?
No, that's all right. Go ahead. I'd like to hear what
Yeah,
you
go
said.
ahead.
I just had a quick question. So maybe it's more for Marcus. How long has it been measured on a net density basis? Has it always been measured on net density?
It always has, correct.
So generally, and I was just kind of doing research on other developments in town, like we had Metro East. I know that's a little bit closer to the downtown, so it was a little bit more unique. And of course, like every project, and that's what we're kind of asking too, stands on its own merits, right? Like there's different conditions that might warrant a deviation, right? So I looked into Orland Bridge as well, and that seemed like it had a higher density as well. So I didn't know if in this instance, because, right, I understand code requires it be measured this way, how is it granted in the past, and like, how do we get to that place? Because obviously we do have a little bit of a unique condition. We are providing all this open space, and it's different than the other super dense communities, if that makes sense.
I think it would be judicious if perhaps, let's get everybody's opinion up here, and they might.
Absolutely.
They might present some more issues that you'd like to address, and we'd be happy to allow you to do that. And, you know, as far as other towns and everything, well, I mean, one thing that was, you know, pointed out here was that, you know, first of all, that pond can't be deeper. It just can't.
Right.
And I don't know how familiar you are with this village, but we've had a number of flooding problems on Wolf Road, and, you know, we're very careful about that. And so I'll just go on to my other commissioners and see what other issues they may have.
Can I say one more thing, Mr. Chairman?
Of course.
I think what the engineer indicated, what both engineers indicated about the elevation of the outflow, I think is very significant, should be very significant in your presentation to the village board, because that is a unique thing. And you're right, when we considered other developments, Metro East being a recent one, we had to look at different factors, and there were special situations in some of those things that warranted making a deviation. So I just
I appreciate
say you
it.
might think about that when you make your presentation.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Nugent.
Back to our engineers. So in thinking of Wolf from about 153rd, from Mr. Jean's project to Route 6, I drove a lot of it for this. Is it fair to say this is one of the more level or high points of Wolf Road? Because 178th Route 6 is our biggest flooding issue. The land west of Wolf between 155th and 159th, you go a few blocks past, and that's DeLuga Woods and all the swamps. And then you got the green space that's been half acquired by our open lands, all the way at Will Cook. But in looking at it, this is one of our more level or high points on Wolf Road, correct?
Yeah, that's correct, and that's just prior discussions with the developer's design engineer. That's something that we brought up with, you know, like that wolf ditch might, or like that stormwater from the wolf ditch might go in, and they accounted that in their stormwater design. So
So to the south of us, where Karen Lane is, and then the rest is Spring Creek Place, and then Avenel, well, the one I don't think is in the village, because those are sided townhomes, but the other two are in the village, correct? So the
I can't
Avenel
recall.
Road, which is west, the only thing west of Wolf, right?
I can answer that. Avenel and Spring Creek are both in the village. East of Avenel is unincorporated.
Yeah, that is. Okay. So when this water and this pond, this is connecting to the existing Wolf Road for stormwater management, right?
This pond?
This proposed pond will connect where?
I don't believe it's connected, but I think it's like the tailwater from the Wolf Road ditch. It may contribute to the pond, and they counted for that. John, if you want to.
Where's this water?
Where's the water
This
gonna
is
go?
retention or detention?
It's detention.
It's gonna hold it, but then it's gonna,
Yeah, but over time it will seep out. Yes.
Where's it going?
John, if
where's
you
it
want.
going? It's connecting to current storm on Wolf Road? Because you got spotty development up and down, so.
Sir?
Yes, so from our pond, it connects into the Wolf Road ditch and runs off to the north.
Oh, okay, so it's an open,
So it's an open ditch once it gets under the underneath our entrance road.
so it's heading north.
Heads north, yeah.
So the area that you guys are gonna bait in the far northeast corner, I would assume means that's your current low point, right? I mean, you have wetlands there, so what's the current direction of overland flow? To the east?
To the west, I believe.
Oh, it does go to the west.
I believe so.
So you're not diverting something.
No. Once it hits the culvert, it's gonna go, or once it hits the ditch, it's gonna continue to
So as
where
you
it always
develop
went.
it, everything's going west, regardless of what it's doing now.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't know if it goes back to them or you guys, but I don't know, can you go back to the parking and the drawing? So, I mean, I've looked at it here, I've looked at it on what you guys sent me. So when you have the drawings of all the buildings there. So take the back group, the eastern portion. So you see the dark gray road, Yelnick. What's the white? So there's gonna be a driveway in front of Yelnick? And then it's gonna go to individual driveways? Or is that a sidewalk? That's your sidewalk? So are Yelnick and Yunker and G, are those all wide enough for the park? That's where all our extra parking is on those roads?
So there's going to be on-street parking. I think it might look better with a black and white plan, but sort of on the parkway, there's going to be some curb bump outs, and you can see there's on-street parking there. So it's kind of a wider street in that area. And then there's 60 feet between the buildings on the private driveway. And then each of that private driveway will have 18-foot driveways that stem off of it that act as additional parking spaces, even though they don't count in our code as required
Like
parking.
they compared it to Metro East and then over by the new stadium. I just have a brain freeze who the developer is, but anyway, so, and nothing against these things, I'm not saying they're monotonous, but everybody's building these 3-story townhomes and the only outdoor space is a second floor balcony. And then you're overlooking 2 of the garage spaces. Well, the garage is 2 plus 2. So likelihood is half these people are gonna park a vehicle in that drive. But we're counting those as 2 of the parking spaces, right?
They're not actually counted. Those are just additional within the plans. So there's actually 247 spaces provided, and that includes 2 in each garage as well as on-street parking.
So like at Metro East, even though it's a different zoning, different area, like their west end next to the undeveloped property, there's a little stub for parking. I don't see any of these here. So are there ever little parking spaces or it's all gonna be these streets?
So it's technically a curb bump out, so it's not, you wouldn't have to drive around the car when it's parked on the street. It's actually gonna, when you go to parallel park on the right, you're actually gonna go closer to the right. Like there's a curb bump out on the map.
And I know they said it was in the presentation, so this actually exceeds, their parking exceeds our requirement, right?
Correct.
Now, and maybe for the petitioners, so Yelnick, if Yelnick is, I mean, I've always loved the idea that we have stubs and we can connect, so we can connect communities. That's the purpose of Yelnick, obviously, right? But currently to the south, if it did connect, they're connecting to the township's, whatever, garage.
Correct. But I would say the one other thing, so Karen Drive is to the south, and that's a dead end that would connect to, I believe it's Empire Tire or another building on Wolf Road. That's a stub street that would eventually connect north. And then Spring Creek Place off of 108th Avenue has a dead end street,
Yeah, Anthony just keeps going.
Anthony
straight.
Drive. So we
That's
figured,
south, if you can go back to that one,
I'm sorry?
can you go back where it shows the other adjoining parcels?
Would that be?
Okay, there.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you come off 108th, the curving street that dead ends, that's Anthony. And then the stub off Wolf is Karen, correct?
Correct.
So they're both aiming for Empire Tire, right?
Is it Empire or is it Fenn?
There's two businesses, right?
It's one of the two, I can't recall.
That
Yeah.
landscaping is there too.
Fenn is contiguous.
And the black box is actually the township parcel, right? So Yelnick could connect if the township ever sold out. And then Karen and Anthony would connect if the other two businesses sold out. All right, and then the blue above it, is that land owned by the school district?
No, only the side, you can kind of see a dividing line. Only
Yes.
the right side is owned by the school district.
Because the back end of that, whatever you call that road, that's for that Acorn or whatever the alternative school system is, right? So we can almost bank that all of that's never gonna be residential development. The school district would have to sell the back end.
Unless the school district sold it, yeah.
Okay. And, a question for petitioners, why are the three parks private? I actually don't think it's a bad idea, but why are they private?
Just because of their passive recreational, like, nature. We talked to staff, of course, if there was interest in the Parks Department, we'd be happy to dedicate it, but it sounded like it was more well-suited as a private recreational area.
Because the way it's set right now, there's no reason for anybody to come here and enjoy.
We don't expect a ton of people coming in and parking and using the facility, so it's much
Gonna be
more passive.
Private, so you guys have to
Yes,
maintain it.
exactly.
And the streets with the names, Yelnick and Yonker, would be public. But
Correct.
G and the other one are yours.
Any of the private drives are owned and maintained by the HOA.
Okay. We have one more. I'm good.
Thank you, John.
Am I with your question?
Commissioner Zamparelli?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excellent presentation, I have to admit, very thorough. Couple of questions. Number one, garbage pickup. How are they going to do the garbage pickup?
No, just, they're gonna bring everything to the street,
So if you're living in number unit 7 all the way farthest north, you got to drag it all the way down?
Yes.
So it's all on the main street, so,
And we've done that in many other communities, and it's very successful. An HOA requires that they can't stay in the garage unless on garbage day, and they reinforce that in their CCNRs.
I've seen the results of those garbage cans sitting there. Those people are there, the poor people on the end, right on the main road. They sit there and look at many, many garbage cans for a long time. Go ahead.
This is Todd from Lennar.
Could we just have for the record, your name and your address and position?
Todd Clevin, KLE, V as in Victor, EN, Director of Land Acquisition with Lennar. Our offices reside at 1700 East Gulf Road, Suite 11, Schaumburg, Illinois. If you would like, I'm sure we could work with the developer to incorporate that type of language in the actual PUD itself. So therefore, the village would also have the right to enforce that garbage can ordinance that must stay within the garage during the days that are not, within 24 hours or whatever your current ordinance is. If it's in our covenants and restrictions, that's one thing, our HOA can enforce it, but if we put it into the actual PUD, then the municipality can also enforce it.
Yeah, because actually, I think it's terrible if you're one of those
No,
poor
I think
people
it's a good idea.
running the main road. So I would definitely
Yeah,
add that.
I think it's a good suggestion.
All right, and two more questions. Fire trucks, have you talked to the fire department how, now they're going to be backing in, backing out? Is that
Yes, and we talked, we sent the plans to the fire district. After some back and forth, we provided auto turn. I have an exhibit in my slide. I don't even think I really need to pull it up, but showing that they could get in, they could back up. And then we've also agreed to sprinkle, I think it's buildings 16, 18, and 20. Marcus, I'll highlight them here because these don't have access off of the Yunker or Yelnick. So then those would be sprinkled for added safety measures in case the fire truck can't get back there at that moment very quickly.
So you said 16, 8, and 20.
16, 18, and
Oh,
20.
okay,
So
okay.
these ones, yep, because those are the only ones that don't have access on the public right-of-way.
Okay, thank you. One more question, and it's really about the peat moss, I mean, the wetland. How do you fix that? You digging that all out of there? What do you do?
I'm not an
Well,
engineer.
I
But
didn't think you were gonna take a shovel.
there's a huge, and I know Kevin can probably speak to it better, but there's a huge permitting process, a lot of plans get involved, and they have to review everything and approve how it gets mitigated, and he can give you
Please,
better detail
yes.
on that.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is that wetland is as big as it needs to be because you can't go deeper.
No, the wet.
No,
This is for the
no,
northeast
no, no, no,
corner.
no.
I'm talking about the pond, I'm sorry. Excuse me, I'm
So the
sorry.
wetlands up in the northeast corner, it's about 0.4 acres.
Right.
And it's an isolated wetland. It's got some value to it, but the developer has purchased the requisite wetland credits and a larger, more regional wetland that can provide better benefit to the.
I'm just curious, because there's gonna be a building built on it, so you gotta go in there and take all the bad dirt out.
Yeah, they'll take out the bad dirt and put in engineered fill.
Do you know how deep it is?
I don't remember, but it wasn't substantially deep.
Because I live over by Metro East, you know, and.
That was all wetlands, if I
Well, we have
remember
bad
correctly.
soil there right on
the-
John Humphrey.
On the west side of that.
Yeah,
that ditch,
you know that, because you guys built over John Humphrey.
Yep.
So, but that goes down 30 feet.
This one doesn't go down that far. That, you know,
You hope.
it's not cost prohibitive.
Very good. All right, well, I was just more curious for my side, my own benefit. What else do I have? I think, land. That is all. I appreciate the presentation. Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really don't have any other additional questions after the other members spoke.
They
I
did a
will say
pretty thorough
that
job.
I really like the plan. I think it looks great and it's kind of unique for this part of town. I also really like that there's different elevations, you know, especially after the Orland Ridge area and how it turned out really dense and kind of identical. So I like this plan personally, so.
Thank you. Commissioner Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I like this idea, and I want to see this work. What's the alternative again if we can't get, if we're stuck with the we're stuck with the 6?
Except for the 6, we lose,
Yeah.
what, 19
How
units?
does that work?
You lose 17 units?
Work financially, but as I said, if we were trying to recoup costs, likely these buildings would get bigger, they'd get bulkier, and they wouldn't be as attractive, in my opinion. I mean, it would just be, it would take up more space, you wouldn't have as much green space, it wouldn't be as attractive as a plan. So I think that's what we're trying to illustrate to both this commission and the village board, that doesn't necessarily yield a better plan, right? So we would have to seriously consider like what we can and can't do. And we have already done that. We've done that with our detention and we've done that with our many renditions of the plan with staff over the past almost 2 years at this point. But again, we're happy to continue working with everybody because we too want to see it through.
And that would be the only option?
At this point, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Because, yeah, I mean, you need something there. I mean, you look at, there's a strip mall right down the street. They lost a McDonald's. How do you lose a McDonald's? Starbucks, gone. So it's like, yeah, you got to get some people in there, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
when you see stuff like that happening, it's like, yeah, and then something like this comes along, and it's like, that'll put some people in there. That's something we need in that area. That's really all I have. I was looking to see if there was a way with the pond or with some other way that this could work and still be in compliance. Again, the board can do what they want to do. I mean, they can, it's their rules. They can bend them or change them, you know,
Right.
within certain parameters, and I think that they would have the ability to do that. but we don't. I mean, we could say that and say, let's pass it with everything the way it is. But then if it gets shot down, then we're back to square one. So it's probably better, I would think, to pass this. Did you think to pass this? Because I was thinking maybe if I voted no on it, that might be better, but.
Well, no, this recommendation is approving most of the requests,
Yeah.
bar one, which is,
Yeah.
which is the issue that they would have to take up with the board.
Yeah, so I think I would support this. Like I say, I'd like to see this as you've presented it. Let's hope that would work, because I think that makes the most sense. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you. Well, first of all, I agree with my other board members. I told you up front, too. I think you've prepared a very, very excellent and detailed presentation and presented your points of view, I think, which were very strong. Like everybody else, I like the project. But our board, has decided, with reason, that they want to retain to the net land area and not the gross. And the fact that retention pond can't be deeper it's a shame, but it can't. So I know staff recommendation complies with the board's wishes. And, I'm going to comply with the staff recommendation. And for my fellow commissioners, if we approve this motion, approving it, part of this motion is denying the variance from 7.4 to 6. I just want you to understand that. John, you're looking at me. No. Do you have a question?
No.
Okay.
But before we do a vote, if I could just add one comment that I meant to say.
Why don't you make it then now?
So one of the things, and nothing against the floor plan, obviously the marketplace wants it, your competitors are building this. I mean, I don't love the idea that your only ability to be outside is the second floor balconies, but at minimum, 15 of the 20 buildings or so look at something green. So like take where the pond, the two there look at green. The next football looking thing, all 4 of them look at green. With the other one in the back, you have minimum 3 that look at the green, and up there, and then even on the ones that don't look at green, the side. So I did drive through Metro East. I didn't have to drive through Orland Ridge. And with Orland Ridge, even with the density issue, you got everyone looking at 94th Ave and 167th. And I mean, granted, they didn't have the direct access to Orland Prairie, but if you're going to build these types, with at least these people, at least they're looking at something green and positive. So I'm compensating the density that they really are looking at green. And even if somebody else is more compliant, we don't often have people that are looking at this much, not parking lot or not unit. Because even at Metro East, half those people look at each other.
Which is another good point. I know we all like.
To justify that this
Yeah,
number,
and,
the reality is you are looking at green space.
But the fact is, just staying with the motion, we don't have the authority here to waive that requirement as presented by staff. But I would highly encourage, you, when you go before the board, I mean, you have a powerful presentation. You really do. And some of the points brought up here, like what John just brought up, and everything are just additional positives. And I think you need to bring them up. I mean, I know what other towns have done everything, but we're this town. And there are some unique characteristics of this area and that particular plot. So, so were you done, John?
Yes.
Okay, so having said that, I'm going to entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Schuessler.
I'm going to make the motion, but before I make the motion, I want to say once again, I'm only making this motion and supporting the the staff's recommendation of a denial of the modification for the increase of the density to 7.4 based on net buildable acreage.
Okay?
Because the board previously denied changing the definition of density from net buildable acreage to gross acreage.
Understood.
So, Mr. Chairman, regarding case number 2023-0309, also known as Founders of Orland Park Residential Plan Development, I move to approve the staff recommended action as presented in the staff report to the Plan Commission for this case.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Poyus. Commissioner Sanchez?
I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little confused on the.
Excuse me?
the word. I'm a little confused on, what Ed just,
Well,
Commissioner.
no, if you
Schuster said.
approve the motion, and if you could see, there were several variances were requested.
With one
And the
denial.
motion denies the variance to go from 7.4 down to 6. So if you approve the motion, that particular request out of the variance is denied.
I understand that.
Okay, so your question?
What if I don't want to deny that?
Well, then you don't approve the motion.
I vote no.
You vote no.
You just nay.
Okay,
Are you voting nay?
I'm voting nay.
Okay. Commissioner Paul?
Aye.
Commissioner Schubert?
Aye.
Schubert, I said Schubert, I'm
I
sorry.
know who you meant.
I'm thinking Schussler and Nugent there.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Nugent?
Mr. Chairman, is there any way we could amend the motion to kind of separate everything, or should it just be this?
Well, they've already started to vote,
Okay,
so they need to finish this vote.
Okay.
If they want to vote no to, and then re-vote with a separation, that's the choice of the commissioners.
thank you.
Well, we have a nay, we have an aye. Commissioner Schussler?
Aye.
Aye.
How
Commissioner,
many votes do we have?
pardon?
2 ayes. and
2
1
ayes, nay.
Oh, wait, how did John Paul vote? He voted aye. 3 ayes. 3
No.
ayes, 1 nay.
No?
How did John Paul vote?
Aye.
And you voted, oh, you haven't
I didn't
voted.
vote yet.
Okay.
But if we all go nay, then they're back at square one.
Well, it.
No, we make a new motion.
Nay, they're still gonna go before the village board with this.
We have the opportunity to do an additional motion if somebody would like to propose it. If nobody proposes an additional motion and it's a nay vote, then it advances forward without a recommendation.
Okay, so if it advances mixed, it's gonna still go committee of the whole.
Correct.
Okay, I'm gonna, because I want a new motion, so I'm gonna vote nay because I want a new motion.
Pat,
I have a question.
please?
I wanted my garbage issue. Should that have been put into this motion, or should we're more than likely gonna go right back, right?
Make a separate motion.
So I'm just gonna say nay on that as well then. Okay? We've got a nay, and we'll hopefully just go with another motion so we can work out these little.
So we have 3 nays and 2 ayes. I'm gonna vote aye. So where does that take us?
3-3.
50-50. So you don't have an advancement.
No, we don't.
So we're open for additional motions.
So this motion wasn't passed,
What are the possibilities?
but we,
Well, if someone wants to.
wasn't there,
Mr. Chairman, could attorney give us our
we recently,
possibilities here?
we recently discussed what would occur when we had such a situation. And to be honest with you, it escapes me right now, if we had a tie. And we do because one of the board members is absent. Does anybody recall that particular point?
Yes, it does not advance forward with a recommendation if there's not a majority voting in favor of recommendation. But we also have the opportunity now to do additional motions. I hear some of the commissioners saying that they wanted specifically different things on the motion or to vote separately, and that can be done as well.
Okay,
So another clean motion could advance forward.
well, first of all, Well, I'd like to make a motion that we we amend the previous motion and.
No, make a
The,
new
the
motion.
previous motion is dead. You
Okay,
can't
but-
amend a motion
okay,
that's
well,
already
I-
been.
Make a new one.
Yeah, well,
make
my
a new one.
motion is that we approve the proposal, the motion that we were suggested we make, with the exception of the line speaking about density from 7.4 to 6. Does that sound right?
Okay, so your motion would
Let
be,
Ann, Ann's our attorney.
That's fine. No, I'm clarifying that you're saying that you would approve the staff recommended, you're moving to approve the staff recommended action, except for on density, in which you would also approve a variation.
No, I wasn't suggesting we approve a variation.
Oh, so you mean just vote on everything except the density recommendation?
how would that work, though? If we send it to.
I think that's what they
board
wanted.
without a
It
recommendation
would,
on
it would,
density.
it would be an advancement or a recommendation on the
At the end
items
of the
listed
day-
and none and silence on that one.
You know, at the end of the day, I know Pat has an additional request having to do with the garbage pickup. That's kind of an amendment. But at the end of the day, the holdup is the request for variation from 7.4 to 6. And, you know, and by not approving this motion, we're not making it easier to get this thing done. I mean, if we don't approve this motion, they will go to the trustees with their presentation. And it can get resolved there.
Well, might I suggest that there appeared during the vote tally to be consensus on passing it forward with the addition of the garbage can requirement? There appeared to be a majority of support for that
I'm gonna
proposition if
make-
that motion was made.
Okay, well, I'll accept that.
I'll go for that.
A new motion to proceed with the original recommendation with the addition that, what's the wording we should use?
Garbage pickup?
With the addition that a requirement be added to the PUD regarding their plan to have conditions regarding garbage can placement.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Zamparelli. Commissioner Sanchez.
Aye.
Commissioner Paul.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion
So
passes.
It's going to leapfrog committee of the whole and go right to the full board.
It's gonna go right, it's gonna.
That will
They won't
not
have to go before the committee of the whole,
Right,
they go
correct.
right to the board.
Yeah,
What happened was, we passed the original recommendation, which in fact denies the variance from 7.4 down to 6. If we had done nothing else and just denied it, you'd have to go to the board and make your presentation.
Understood,
And
and I
you-
still plan on making a presentation at Village Board. It just sounded like there was maybe some support for the density modification that would recommend approval of a modification from density, so I didn't know.
It's
how-
not within
that-
our,
That wasn't, it wasn't going to be voted on separately.
no, we're not voting on it separately. No.
The motion that was made encompasses all of the staff recommended action with the addition of the item that was discussed about the garbage can.
Yeah, that's where it lays, that's where it
restriction.
stands now.
And that gained actually unanimous support.
Yes, it was. And so the next,
so you can still make your case at the board level.
yes, you still have to make
for
your case
the
to the board.
Modification that
You make a
you've asked
good
for on
case.
density.
Absolutely. Thank you
They're
so
going
much
to
for
get the
your time.
tape of this, they're going to get the notes.
Oh, they're gonna, yeah, this is why we record all of this.
So they do look at, besides our votes, our intentions. And we have to vote on what's in front of
Yeah.
us, but they have every right to have their opinion, so.
Right.
And
And
we've
you,
already acknowledged the differences
Yeah.
when we amended this before. We said yes, they said no.
yeah,
So we're throwing it at them, but we're actually skipping a double review by sending it right to the whole board, which
exactly,
we think works to your advantage.
which is to your advantage, I think, too. And, you know, you make an excellent presentation, and, you know, our board are very open-minded and intelligent people. And wish you luck.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Any other business? I move that we close open public hearings.
Actually, can I ask a clarification
And,
question?
Sure.
No?
Carrie.
Carrie has a clarification
No,
question.
I didn't know if, I guess
I'm listening to Carrie.
we're trying to understand just for like the record for,
What just happened?
yes.
There, it's
Because
great.
because there were 3 ayes and 3 nays with the first round. And I think there was possibly support for,
No, there were 2 rounds.
yes.
The first round was deadlocked, 3-3. We made a new motion that was the initial recommendation, adding the garbage container language to that motion, and that was unanimous.
So it goes forward with the staff's.
It's an amended motion, and it's unanimous.
Well, it's not
Okay.
technically an amended
No, it's a
motion.
new
It was
motion.
a new motion.
A new motion.
A new motion was
Okay.
made
A new
encompassing
motion.
all of the staff recommended action plus
Right.
the garbage
Plus,
can
right.
requirement.
That's the only
And
thing
that
that's changed.
passed unanimously. It's going to be a
Yeah.
recommendation to the board.
Okay.
But
'Cause
I
I felt
think
like one of the-
Carrie's point is she's trying to get clarity, what is our opinion about density? And
'Cause
so
I feel
by
like-
doing this,
yeah.
we did- you're trying to get clarity, how did we feel about density? Because we didn't address that, correct?
Yeah, because I feel like the first round, like, there
it
were
was not-
possibly some nays because the density issue. So I guess I just want to make sure we have that clear for the record.
Well, how,
Resolved by the unanimous second vote. The second vote was encompassed the staff's
Okay.
recommendation not to modify the density, and nobody voted no.
That's it.
Okay,
We're going along with the trustees
Okay.
and staff's recommendation.
I just wanted to make sure that we're understanding the spirit and intent
Are
of
we
the
now?
first motion and the second, so
Does that help? Maybe? a little?
mostly.
We can discuss this afterwards.
Okay,
Yeah, we can.
But the petitioner
Thank
and
you.
Carrie are trying to clarify,
she
what
wants-
is our view about the density? And I think at least 5 of us have stated how we feel about that.
I think we've said that during our
Just
discussion.
not in our motion, though. So they're going to have to,
No, I don't think it's appropriate for us to say that in our motion.
correct. But we're given the feedback, that's what
I
you're
mean,
asking.
you can't make a motion that, I disagree with it, but I'm going to approve it. I mean, we had that in our discussion, and we all had our discussion, all of us, and we came up with a vote.
that's the motion I made, though. I said I disagree with it, but I'm making the motion because the board previously had made a policy decision, even though I disagree with it. And every one of us disagree with that because we voted in this, when was it? When did we vote on that code change?
December.
December 18th, 2023.
We voted unanimously at that time to change the definition of density from net buildable acreage to gross acreage. We all approved that, and the board said no.
Right, and I was
So,
chairman at that time.
so we are all on record
We are,
as saying that we think it should be gross
yeah,
acreage and not net.
we are, and I
So-
was chairman at that meeting.
Right, so,
So that
so the village board, if they look at the comments tonight, they will know that we disagree with them, but we're going along with them because they're the board, they're elected, we're only a recommending body, and it's now up to them to decide whether they want to take a second look at this and change it, or whether they want to leave it the way it is. If they leave it the way it is, developer has to look at alternatives. If they change it,
What
then
we're
they're going to
doing-
go forward with the plan the way it's proposed.
What we did is, we've kind of eliminated the need for the petitioners
To go to the committee.
to go to committee. So we skipped, we didn't add an extra layer of this to them. They're going to go right to the board and make their presentation, which is very powerful. Commissioner Zamparelli.
Mr. Chairman, isn't what you just said the same thing that Ed just said? Because I voted on what Ed just said. I'm okay, I voted in December of last year that
did I.
it should be based on gross. Gross would put us at 90 units. I'm okay with that. There's an issue with the water, we'll work that out with engineering, but that's what I thought we supported. I think we're all on that same page. Am I wrong?
Well, the only thing is our vote could look contrarian because not to dismiss Ed, who has the most senior representation in anything. Ed kind of said that we're voting to agree with the board. No, it's our job as members of the community to give our opinion, and we're giving our opinion. It's not our job to confirm what the board may want us to do. We're supposed to be independently thinking what we think the board should do. So by the vote, we did deny the idea of the density, but in the footnotes and the commentary, we've made it clear, minimum 5, maybe 6, have said that we are okay with the density. But I don't want it to be that the no infers that, no, we're not okay with the density, because the vote does state that. But it's the notes in our commentary that contradict that.
Yeah, and it's not within our purview, it's not within our powers
We can't change the
to
code.
amend code.
No, we can't change the code. I
We can't
understand
change the code, no. And so we're just doing our job, but like you said, there's been opinions expressed that are self-explanatory. I really thank you for your patience and you know, you did a wonderful job. And wish you the best.
This project
I
could be a
move that we-
stimulus for this quarter.
I move that we close.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
I move we adjourn.
Adjourn at 8:31.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.